Hi, friends. I am Barrett, Laurie. Thank you for joining me for this live stream interview with my good friend, Adrian Santiago. He is the mastermind behind Books by Adrian, the YouTube channel, soon to be books that you can purchase, courses, the whole deal. And I can't wait to dig into it with him now. So for those of you that are new, my name is Barrett Laurie again. I am not only fabulous, but I run this channel. The interview series is meant to connect my audience with authors and entrepreneurs via a discussion-based format. The first half of the interview is mine, my questions, my time. In the middle, we'll have a short rapid-fire questions section. We end with questions from the audience. Please denote questions with a Q so I can find them easily in chat. All right, now I'm gonna switch my banners. Not as slick as Adrian. So for those of you that are used to high production value, you don't get that here. So get used to it. Adrian Santiago is the mastermind behind the YouTube channel Books by Adrian, and he is blazing a unique path only he could clear. His shining personality and sharp wit are tools that he wields to entertain his audience as he grows his author platform in anticipation of his forthcoming debut novel, MYTHIC, Shadow of the Spark. This husband and dad wants to win you over, so you're primed and pumped for MYTHIC. He invited us all on the journey to self-publish MYTHIC, so if you're new to Books by Adrian, I got you. I'm so excited to welcome my friend, Adrian Santiago, the host of Books by Adrian. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Barrett, thank you very much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Like, I can't even express how happy I am to be here.
Me too. Why did this take so long? So take it away. Tell everybody who you are for now, and then we'll pop back in the combo.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, if anybody out there isn't aware of me yet, my name is Adrian. I run Books by Adrian. You can find me at booksbyadrian.com or youtube.com/booksbyadrian. You can find all of my social media from that website and from the YouTube, honestly. They're all across the top there. Instagram is the big one. We have some big things coming to the channel and to my online platform in general next month in August. A new platform with some courses and in a writer's community. We're also going to launch the new look of Books by Adrian. And if you want to know when all of this stuff is going down, go to booksbyadrian.com, sign up for the mailing list, or follow me on Instagram, because those are the two places where I'll be announcing stuff. And I can't wait to show you guys what I've got coming.
I'm super excited. So everybody, it's also scrolling at the bottom of your screen. You will also find it all in the description box below. And then in case we don't say it enough, we'll probably drop the website a few times because newsletters save authors' lives. So Adrian, way to go. You're killing it. I am going to start with some little kind of about stuff just so people can kind of get to know you before we dive into the nuts and bolts. So how about how has being a husband and father influenced your writing? You talk about it right up front on your website. So kind of talk to us about how they influence you and your craft.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that I talk about it up front on my website, because when I saw this question in your outline, I really had to think about it for a long time. You know, I used to write books about 20-somethings, and now I'm writing book about 30-somethings. And you would think that I would have some parents in the story. My characters are not parents yet. But what I did find in considering my answer to this question is that all of my main characters have a very interesting relationship with their parent or parents. And I think that comes from my change into the life of a parent, where one of the very first things that I did after becoming a father for the first time was I went to my father and apologized to him for all the nonsense that I did in my life and all the headaches that I caused him and all the disrespect that I threw his way so many times. And I had no idea the unconditional love that a parent has for a child, and the complex relationship. You know, my wife and I stay up at night talking about our kids and about what we do with our kids and where we want them to go and what we want them to do and what we want for them. And I, you know, you don't think about that when you're a kid. You don't think about what your parents have to deal with as parents and how lost they probably are. You know, like every new parent especially is just learning as they go. And so I find that writing very interesting relationships between my characters and their parents is probably the biggest change that has come from being a parent. And the biggest change that has come from being a husband is I think I have a new understanding of what the word intimacy means. You know, everybody really thinks about sexy time when you use the word intimacy. Intimacy is actually like when you're up at 4 a.m. crying in your wife's arms and, you know, confessing every horrible thing you ever did in your life and you know, unburdening yourself and having her like hold you and tell you that everything's going to be okay and that you're not a horrible person, that everything's fine, that you're a good husband, a good father. Like, that's intimacy, man. Like knowing every little thing about a person and still accepting them. So that has definitely influenced my writing in a big way.
I would also say being willing and able to share something as personal as your art with someone you really love, where you care about their opinion, also intimate.
Yeah. Okay. Luckily for me, my wife is not a huge reader, so I don't have
me either. That's weird. We can connect on that. My husband's like, I don't want to read it, and I'll tell him all the time, "Do you want to hear it?" And he'll be like, "Do you? If you want me to hear it." And I'll be like, oh, okay, awesome.
My wife is like, when it's done, I'll read it. I'm like, no, you won't.
See, maybe we should team them up. They may be able to be like, okay, we'll let them go write and do their thing. Okay, quick question. So do you tell your kids stories? Like bedtime stories, or, you know, like what is it age appropriate for that to be a thing?
I started reading my kids stories from the jump. I mean, before they could even hold their head up, I was reading them stories before bed. I work over, I work a PM shift at least 3 times a week from like 3 to 11 p.m. And on those nights, obviously, I can't read them bedtime stories, but the whole rest of the week, I always make time to read them bedtime stories. And you know, I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, so there's some differences in like what I can read each one. So we'll usually start with like a baby book where I'm reading to both of them, and then the baby goes with the mom to go to bed, and I can read something a little older for my son. I haven't written them anything yet. I don't, you know, people assume that writing a children's story is probably easy because, you know, they're very simple storytelling, you know, things that you have to do, but it's actually, I find, a lot harder because you kind of have to tell an interesting story, but make it incredibly accessible for a mind that doesn't know these, you know, concepts and words yet. So, much harder than it looks. I've tried, and it's much harder than it looks.
Like, they can tell when you're trying to like sneak some. Okay, I'm sorry. I have my neighbor. The unit upstairs, guys, is doing construction, so I apologize if you can hear. They're putting in cabinets. Okay, good deal. All right, I'm using my microphone, so I'm like, I hope it's killing it. But they are putting in cabinets directly above me. Awesome, thanks, guys. Okay, so tell me this: do you remember your first complete story, or like what age you were when you finished your first, you know, story?
I wish that I did. I'm not sure when I wrote my first complete story. I do know that I've been writing as long as I can remember. I've been writing different kinds of things. I went through a phase in high school where I played in like punk rock bands and stuff, so I wrote a lot of songs. You know, I'm not much of a poet, but I tried my hand in that and I wrote some songs. But the first story that I plotted out from beginning to end is what will hopefully one day be a graphic novel that I finish and put out with some friends of mine. My goals for that particular story are so grand that I had to literally set it aside and become a better writer before I can go back and finish it. But that is the first like major story I can remember writing from beginning to end. And I think that was maybe 10, 12 years ago, something like that.
Wow. So now, have you always wanted to write, or is it something that came to you later?
I've always been a storyteller. I didn't always know that I wanted to write, but I knew I loved telling stories. I love telling stories, and I love making people laugh. One of the earliest, you know, kind of what's the word? One of the earliest memories that I have of something that made me feel very, very proud of myself and accomplished was in 3rd grade. My friend and I did a talent show, and we were the only ones who did something that wasn't singing or dancing. What we did was we took a comedy bit from one of Bill Cosby's specials, because this was back in the time where we didn't know that he was one of the biggest monsters in the world, and I was a huge fan. And so we took one of his bits, and we took one of his bits and we added sound effects and costumes, and we made it a whole like production. And we just had an auditorium of a couple hundred people just laughing their butts off, just roaring laughing. We were in the paper the next day. We didn't, it wasn't like a competition talent show, so we didn't win or anything, but we definitely made like the biggest splash of the night. And that's the first time that I realized, oh, like I like doing this. I like telling stories. I like getting people like engaged in a narrative and stuff like that. So I didn't necessarily know yet that I liked writing, but that was probably the beginning of it.
Wow. Well, okay, I've been really impressed with your YouTube content. I think you're a natural. I think it's a strength. So once you achieve the dreams you have for your writing career, do you see yourself continuing your content creation? And if so, do you see yourself constantly evolving and changing your channel as your brand grows?
Yes, to all of that. I definitely intend to continue making content. I definitely foresee the methods in which I create content changing as I get more and more into being an author. Once my books are out and I have an audience and I'm on a schedule to put the next book out and all that, I'll probably have other people kind of lighten the load a little bit, maybe edit my videos for me and all that kind of stuff.
That's my dream.
Yeah, to be able to like sit down like on a Monday and record like all the videos for that month or whatever it is, and then just have somebody else edit them and put them out periodically, like that would be definitely the dream. So that's where I hope it goes. But I definitely plan to continue making content for the YouTube channel. If this is where my audience is born, then I'm just gonna keep nurturing that, you know.
Absolutely. What would you say is the hardest part of turning yourself into a brand?
Being authentically myself while still actually bringing something interesting and unique to the game. You want to stand out. You want people to, point at you and be, exactly. You want to stand out. You want to do all that. But you also want to be genuine and be yourself and bring whatever it is that you bring to it. So turning myself into a brand, yeah, probably that. Probably just being my genuine self while still like keeping people's interest. Now that I'm rebranding and everything is changing a little bit, that answer might change within the next couple of months. But that's how I feel right now.
Interesting. Well, let's take a little shift over to Books by Adrian, which is the brainchild of your channel. I mean, it's the thing that I was introduced to. That's how you popped into my homepage with that show.
Last Sunday.
Yeah, live stream Sunday. So that's what sucked me onto your channel, and I was like, yes, okay, this is cool. It's something different. And I loved the idea of it, obviously, because I took it and spun it to do my own thing, except I just didn't do it one certain day of the week. But yes, I kind of took it and stole it a little bit, which I think maybe it's funny because I had somebody when they saw we were doing this together that we probably both know who had messaged me and said, I didn't think you guys probably liked each other because I'm thinking like maybe I'd stolen the idea. And I was like, I was literally on his channel. Like
one of the best episodes, by the way.
I don't know. Well, yeah, we'll get to that later. But I did say to him, I was like, what would make you think that? Like, so anyway, they didn't catch that episode. And I was like, well, that was your fault, first of all. Yeah. And get over there now and fix that. But I thought that was funny. Because yes, I did steal it. So where did the idea come from?
Well, Livestream Sunday kind of happened by itself. I didn't plan it. And if you go and look at the playlist that covers season 1, which I didn't know was season 1 when I was doing it, you'll see like some real growing pains for that particular show. But it honestly just started because when I was first starting to do AuthorTube, I was concentrating on putting out videos, content that way. And what I was seeing from the rest of AuthorTube was writing sprints. That was the big one. People love writing sprints. And so I was like, well, I can do a live show. I can do some writing sprints. Let's try it out. And so I did a couple of writing sprints. I did a couple of live shows and then started making friends on AuthorTube, invited them onto the channel. And before I knew it, Livestream Sunday had become a thing that I hadn't really planned. I almost wish I'd come up with a better name for it because I was really only calling it that because it was a live stream that happened on Sunday. Like I wasn't trying to do anything, unique with it. But once it started becoming unique, I realized it. The first big one was I had this lovely young lady named, her screen name is Polly Pocket. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on my channel. And we did an episode about polyamory in pop culture and fiction. because I have polyamorous characters in my novel. And so that was the first time where I was like, oh, I'm doing something different. And I didn't even realize it because, yeah, author tubers are going to talk about being authors, being writers, writing books, reading books, but they're not necessarily talking about stuff that relates to how they write their books or what is in their books. And since I'm trying to attract people to a novel that they've never heard of by an author that they've never heard of, I'm trying to let them know, hey, if you like this thing, you'll find it in my book. And if you like this thing, you'll find this in my book too. And just come on over. And that's kind of where it started, was this idea of let's reach out to people who like the kind of stuff that I like and the kind of stuff that I'm writing, and invite them to come and check it out. So, I mean, like one of the more interesting episodes that I did for season 2 was with my friend Stephanie Straffis. She's a diplomat with the
Love that one.
the State Department.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a great episode because
So
she's not a writer, she's not an author, and I'm bringing her onto a channel that's all about writing and being an author. And
she said a line in that I'll never forget, and I swear it's going to end up in one of my books someday, where she said you could taste the air. She said, you walked outside the embassy, and she said the air was so dirty I could taste it. And I thought, that's going to end up in one of my stories one day.
Yeah, like, that just sounds like a real like crime noir, dirty, gritty kind of city. Like you come out and it's just grimy and you can see it on the walls. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I don't know where, I don't know when, but that came out of that episode. That was actually one of my faves.
It's a good line. It's a good line.
Because I didn't quite know how it would fit, and there was lots of things she had actually that were great for writing, from people and just experiences and travel. Just lots of things from that episode were really interesting.
Well, that's where I was coming from, because I knew that she had lived in like 6 countries over the course of the last 6 years or so. So my biggest idea was, well, let's talk about like everything that she saw and experienced in these very different places through the eyes of an American who has never, experienced that before. Like that brought a real crystallizing, moment to my world building, where I was like, when she was talking about that city that was like a sequence of islands that were interconnected with bridges and stuff, I was just like, that's a fantasy, setting right there. Like, I can't wait to write that book. You know what I mean? Like, so that's definitely like one of the faves.
Okay. Well, so one of the questions obviously on the outline was, which show was your favorite and why was it the one you did with me? But
the one I did with you is one of my favorites. And it's because, number one, you were so incredibly well prepared and knowledgeable about the topic at hand. You, like Kent Sean, made it so that I didn't really have to do much. I really just let you guys off your leash and let you do what you do, and you did it. Other than your episode, the one with Nina Moreno.
And I do both love to hear ourselves talk. So I will say, we give us a chance and a microphone. And
him a little more than you, I think. But yeah, you're right.
We both got it, though. I'm telling you, we both love it.
Oh, man. But the Nina Moreno episode and the Stephanie Straffis episode, those are 2 of my favorites. Nina Moreno's journey as a writer and coming out with her debut novel on a Disney publisher, like right out the gate. Very inspiring for indie writers and first-timers.
That's an interesting name.
Streams by Adrian.
It's not bad. Way to go, Richard Holiday. Not terrible.
I'm just gonna have to steal that. That's awesome.
Yeah. You have lots of love in the chat, obviously, by the way. I'm trying to put them up as we go.
I love them too, man. I love all these guys.
Yeah. So
Nana was here days ago.
Days ago. But she's always good for that. Listen, she is Aphrodite Lee, Richard, all of these folks show up for me all the time. If I have something, they show up. I do my darndest to pay it forward and pay it back because they're good for me. I can never pick a fave. That's fair. So here's a question for you. So that was a favorite episode. What is the thing you picked up from a guest, someone that came on that surprised you? Something that you maybe didn't see coming, and who was the guest, if you don't mind sharing what the nugget of wisdom was?
That's probably the Nina Moreno episode. When she started talking about literary agents and her relationship with hers, I had never heard an author talk so candidly about it, and it wasn't something that I had ever considered having for myself. But after she, shared her story of finding her literary agent and what they do for each other, I felt like I had to get one, or at least the next closest thing, which is what I did. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I took away from interviewing guests on my show is the importance of a literary agent, even if you're going to be an indie author. In fact, especially if you're going to be an indie author,
Because they can
having
send you
somebody
more
in your corner, yeah, to set up meetings and, you know, to pitch your stuff to people and to get you work, you know, like
yeah, tell you
she's
stories.
writing her novels, but she's
That's
also
right.
has her agent show up and be like, hey, you also have to write a short story for this thing, and you have to write a
Yep.
kid's book for this thing. And
Yeah.
that's just, you know,
IP,
paychecks.
IP projects are great money. And I know authors, especially traditional people, and I'll tell them to go screw themselves, poo-poo IP work. But listen, intellectual property work is good money, folks. And, you know, yes, it's harder than it looks to write within the confines of a story, you know, and it's
I find
not
it so
always
interesting.
a pay thing. Some pay, you know what I mean? Some do pay.
I find it a little baffling that so many writers, as you say, poo-poo the idea of IP, you know, because fan fiction is such a huge thing. And I'm
100%.
like, that's what it is, man. Like you're playing in somebody else's sandbox, and the idea that you don't have to build the world or the characters, that they're already done, and all you got to do is tell a great story in there. Like, that's cake, man. Like, do it.
Totally. Totally. It's great. And it's a great opportunity, right? Because each book you get better. So it's like, why not burn through some experience on some books that aren't necessarily on a brand you want to maybe release more polished later? But I could go on rants about shitty stuff about traditional publishing, but we'll get into that later. Don't you worry. Okay, so now that we're kind of talking about the show, so you kind of said the first season you didn't know it was going to be a season, but you really have structured your show kind of as it's gone. So now, knowing what you know, what do you do differently? Like, how many episodes are in a season? How do you hunt your? I think people have the mistaken impression that this is easy to book people regularly and can get schedules together and keep people there time. And like, there is a misconception that it's simple. So I wanted to ask you, like, what have you learned since you've been doing it that you'd tell somebody who thinks, hey, I could do that?
Yeah. Well, to answer the first part of that question, the seasons are anywhere between 13 and 16 episodes. Since it's a weekly show, I try to keep it to a good 3 to 4 month span. So between 12 and 16 episodes is the sweet spot. I believe I had 14 for season 2. As far as how I do it, I reach out to a lot of people on social media, on Instagram, on YouTube. If I see that you're a writer, if I see that you are a unique one in some way, or even if you're not a writer, like I was saying earlier, if you do something that pertains to a particular topic that is important to me or my book, I'm going to reach out to you. And you're right. It's not easy. The internet has really connected the whole world in a big way, and it makes it possible for me to talk to people. In, like, for example, my meeting with Kent Sean a couple of weeks ago. He's in Korea right now. He's in South Korea, and like we had to meet at what was like 9 a.m. for him and 8 p.m. for me the previous day. So there's like time travel involved. Right. It's hard. It's difficult to like make the schedules work. You just got to be patient. You have to be understanding to the other people that you're reaching out to. They have lives, they have jobs, they have families. So you can't be quite so rigid with what you need from them and when. But the idea of having a set date and time, like my show being on Sundays at 4 p.m. always, makes it so that everyone knows off the bat whether or not they are available, whether or not they can do my show. Like, hey, when are you available? It doesn't matter when you're available. It's only on Sundays from 4 to 6. So if you're available Sunday 4 to 6, come on the show. If not, sorry, it's not going to work out. So the only exception I made to that was the interview with Greenleaf Book Group, because
and it was a great interview. If anybody missed it, check that out. That was about hybrid publishing. It was very interesting. It was on a Tuesday, I best I remember.
Wow.
But it was very good.
You're good.
Yeah. I do. Well, no, I have weird memory skills. I could do weird things to child with cards memory. It's a weird thing. More people look at me like, what's wrong with him? He's weird. But I love that you say that, because it really is. It's about kind of being flexible and figuring out what works for you. The thing I regret the most is not picking a certain day. If I were to do that over again, I might. I didn't know. Yeah. Well, what I think. I mean, I'm going to make some shifts to this platform in the fall as well. So yeah, I'm not committing to anything yet. But yes, I agree. That's one thing I regret. So now, as far as books by Adrian, do you see yourself or any topics that you want to handle on your show in the future that might surprise folks?
That might surprise folks. I hope so. That's usually the goal, is to come up with something that nobody else is doing on AuthorTube. So yes, what those things might be, I don't necessarily know off the top of my head, and who those guests might be, I don't know off the top of my head. We're right now working on reaching out to guests for season 3 and everything. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, absolutely, I want to put out some new original videos. I want to put out more live streams, and once I get to a point where I'm making decent money off of the new platform and I can afford to pull back on my day job a little bit, then I hope to also do like some live streams where I do, some writing sprints and stuff like that folks are more familiar with. But yeah, as far as Live Stream Sunday goes, I aim to always surprise you. That's the goal, because that's what's going to bring you in. That's what's going to keep you there. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody can do a live stream, but to make one that makes you want to be there on time and stick around
is hard. Yeah, it's hard. So what made you choose YouTube? For long form content, did you always think I could do that? That's a good because you really do have a great personality for this medium, especially live, because you're witty.
You're too kind. You are too kind. I did not always know that this is where I would end up, but funnily enough, a lot of people have the same story. But when I first discovered what AuthorTube was, the first person that I ran into was Jenna Moresi. Many people know her. She is very, very popular on YouTube. Say what you will about her writing and her books, that chick can bring people to her channel. She can make them stick around. She knows how to get you to invest in her channel and her projects. So she was definitely my first source of inspiration. She told a story early on in her channel, if you go like way back into her videos, about how she used to have a very lucrative day job that she hated, much like myself, and the challenges of quitting her job and doing this full-time, doing YouTube and writing books and making it lucrative for her so that she could do that full-time. And that's literally her job now. And when I heard that was even possible, that's when I was like, okay, let me test this out. And I definitely did not know it would be such hard work. And I definitely did not know that it would take as long as it's taken to build an audience and build a following and all that stuff. And I am grateful for every single person who hits that subscribe button. I'll tell you what, because it's stepping stones, man. I have a goal in mind, and I'm just working my butt off to get there. So she was probably the main source of inspiration to be like, oh, okay, I think I can do this. And then once I got into it and I started meeting all of you guys, Barrett, Kent Sean, Bethany, Colin Clark, like some of these incredible writers who, may not have as huge following as Miss Jenna Moresi, but their writing is incredible and they deserve, so much more than they're already getting. That shift, my influence shifted to come from them rather than from the Jenna Moresis of the world. So yeah, that's where it all came from, man. It's from seeing you guys do it and thinking, hey, maybe I could do that too.
Well, yeah, I think you're killing it. I love the content. I think it gets more sophisticated every season as you go. So I'll be excited to see what the rebrand kind of brings. So you teased a rebrand a little bit. So kind of talk about what that's going to look like as far as what folks will see on the channel and then what they can expect from your website, the newsletter that they should be signing up for. I'll just remind everyone again that the website to sign up for it is going across the screen right now.
Adrian.com.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, with the rebrand, I recently partnered up with my best friend in the world. He's Adrian Guadalupe. He was on the episode of Livestream Sunday where he was scoring the musical score for a short story contest that I did, a flash fiction contest that I did. And after that episode, we were talking a lot about my channel, about my platform, about the things that I want to do with all of this. And he was in a place where he's now making decent money working as a computer programmer, but becoming a computer programmer has really shifted the way that he looks at the internet and the things that are possible with the internet. And he, first and foremost, is an artist. You know, he's a musician. His brother is in marketing. His other brother is a literal artist who paints incredible images. His other brother is a cinematographer. Like it's definitely an arty, family, an artsy family. And so his drive came to supporting other independent artists and making it possible for them to do their craft and not stress out so much about how much work it is and how much money it costs. And so together with his brother, they kind of invested in this, new company that they're starting up. And then I was one of the first people that they reached out to, one of their first new clients. So Adrian and I have partnered up, and he's kind of taking the place of a literary agent for me. In that he's basically the support structure for my platform and for my books and everything like that. And so we have invested in branding designers. We are investing in a new website and all of that stuff. He's building it for me right now as we speak. And what you can expect is a whole new look. You can expect a whole new community that I am starting up, geared towards independent writers and authors, specifically first-time writers and authors who are maybe intimidated by the daunting task of a first draft, or who maybe have tried to do a first draft in the past and weren't able to complete it for one reason or another. Those are the people that I'm kind of reaching out to, because I've recently finished my first draft, and I feel like it's this monumental moment as a writer when you finish the first draft of your debut novel, where you're like, whoa, like I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like this is actually going to happen. And suddenly I felt so much empathy for people who have never felt that before, as I had never felt it before until this moment. And so I was like, I got to reach out to these people, and I got to show them that it's possible, that, man, like if you just stick to it and all that kind of stuff. So we're building a platform around it where other authors can help each other out, give each other, feedback and encouragement, but also where you can choose to purchase some courses if you want to deep dive into the process of it. So you can expect a course on finishing a first draft. You can expect a course on the hero's journey, which is essential knowledge for any writer. And we're even going to do some stuff with flash fiction and short stories and stuff like that. So we're going to be exercising people's writing muscles, and hopefully see through this platform some people finish their first drafts and put their works out there into the world. I'm like really excited to help people out to do that, man.
You should be. I am so excited for you. That's amazing, and I can't wait to see it all come together. I really am super stoked for you and wishing you all the best. It is time to talk about what we're all here for. Mythic, Shadow of the Spark. So I got a copy back in the spring, I think. I actually didn't read it until May, so that was on me. I'm a bad person.
That's okay.
By the time I read it,
busy person.
Well, by the time I read it, Bethany had gone ahead of me, so like I had her notes. I had to turn that off, and I love you, Bethany, but like I wanted to have my own opinion. Like, you know how sometimes like if you see track notes, you can. Anyway, so I was like, no. So anyway, I loved it. I would tell people it's very, when I first read your blurb on your website, or maybe it was I think I watched your trailer, and then I read the description beneath your trailer and your channel. It was the first time I was introduced. But anyway, the first time I remember thinking, that's a lot of genres, like in one story, right? And I kind of thought, he's got to narrow that down. Like, that's
how's it going to work? It can't work.
Yeah. So I did. I really did. And I thought, no, he doesn't know. And then, it really is. I mean, it really is all the things. You know, there is a fantasy element. There is sci-fi. There's a kind of a gritty mystery. The drug culture thing, which we'll get to later. But there was a lot going on there that I was kind of like, what? That is a lot for like one story. And it's interesting now that I read, and I only read the first 5. I haven't gone past that because I think that's as far as you were when you shared it with me. And you finished it since. So I meant to ask you this too. How many chapters did it end up being?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know.
Or like a guesstimate.
Let me look really quick because I have it right here. Okay, so we have, let's see, this is 11 plus 8, 19, and another 8, so 27 chapters.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to assume like a 130 word count is where you came in, somewhere in there, 130, 140?
Maybe a little higher.
Way to go. No, I was going to say, it's an epic, right? I mean, you'd call it an epic.
It's big.
Yeah.
It's a big book. It's a fatty.
You had 38 pages in your prologue. It's epic. Like
Yeah, the prologue is 8,000 words. It's way too long, but I can't shorten it. I can't cut anything out of it.
I don't know where you'd cut. So
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so anyway, now we look all like we've talked around it and haven't discussed the story. So where did the idea for the story come from?
Oh man. Where the idea for the story came from is very hard to pinpoint because it is so many things, as you pointed out. I can definitely say that one of the three main characters, the character of Faye, has lived, as the kids say, rent-free in my head for the last, I don't know, 5 or more years. Like she's been in there, and I've tried to put her into different stories. I tried putting her in a Western once and all these other things, and she never like took off in any story. And then you know, this crazy thing happened about 2 years ago now, where I've had a couple of mushroom trips in my days, and I had one that a lot of people would classify. Nice, huh? I knew we were at here, you and me.
Me too.
So, I had one that many people would consider a bad trip, and I have since learned that there's no such thing as a bad trip. A bad trip is probably the best trip for you because it's identifying some things in your brain that are really, really messed up and that you need to work on. And so I had a bad trip, and I came out of it kind of a changed man. My wife to this day will point to that very day as me having come back changed, like irrecoverable, like changed forever. And so I had to tell that story. But I hate talking about myself in writing. Like I don't journal. I've tried starting journals throughout my whole life. I never get more than a few pages in, and then I quit. I don't like writing about myself. So
I'm not
I had to. Yeah, I'm not either. So I really needed to tell this story in a roundabout way. I needed to separate myself from the story, and so the prologue is what resulted. And as I was writing the prologue, Faye showed up, and I was like, "Oh, look, there she is." And she fit, and she was perfect for it. Like it was almost like she was like, "Yeah, dummy, this is what you should have been writing all along." And so that's where the whole book came from, is from that prologue. Anybody who wants to read the prologue, it's on my website. It's a free sample chapter. Just go to the blog, and it's like the second post down, I think. And that prologue, once I finished writing that prologue, I was like, this is a whole novel. Like I gotta write this thing now. And then once I got like halfway through writing the novel, I realized, oh, this is like a whole series. I gotta write a trilogy and stuff. So it definitely grew, and there's a lot of elements that I had worked on previously that I didn't know where they were going to end up, and they all ended up here. But I think that prologue and Faye is the big like catalyst for this whole thing getting started. So if you go and read that prologue chapter, you'll kind of see like where it all started from. You know what I mean? It all happened from there.
Yeah, Richard, you know, what can I say? I really, really, really rebelled in high school, and like it was the late '90s. It was the grunge phase. Like I was really feeling my Kurt Cobain. Like I was there. I was really angsty. I was angry for a really white, privileged, middle class person. That didn't stop me from trying to abuse myself with narcotics, and I did for years. So probably true that you're better than I. Bethany says she's so excited for more of that story, and she should be, because it was really good. So I kind of asked this question, but tell me this. So, and you sort of answered it, but around the edges. So was the idea for the story fully formed, or did it come to you literally chapter by chapter as you built the story? Like what I saw, was that kind of is that as far as the headlights could see on the car at that point of the story? Or could you see further into the future?
I didn't necessarily see the whole story fully formed, but I'm not a strict plotter or pantser. I'm kind of in between. I like George R.R. Martin's way of thinking about it, where he doesn't say plotter or pantser. He says architect or gardener. You know, the architect having the plans of everything that you know needs to happen and needs to be done for a thing to be done, and the gardener, you know, he can plant a tomato seed and know he's going to get a tomato. But throughout the course of that tomato growing, depending on how much he waters it, how much nutrients he feeds it, how much sunlight it gets, etc., it will develop into a different kind of tomato, you know, different sizes, different whatever. So that's kind of how I think about it. I'm more of a gardener. So When I gave you those chapters, I had already outlined my whole novel, and I have a loose outline for the whole series. So I definitely know where the second and third books are vaguely going. I'll know more when I start actually writing those. But no, I didn't see the story fully formed. There is definitely a lot of exploration when I write. I do outline, but then when I sit down to write a chapter, I allow for a little bit of that plot, a little bit of that pantser in me to come out, and take it in different directions and let the characters do stuff. And if it's good and I want to keep it, then I go back to my outline and I fix it. I put the new thing in there and I organize it. So I'm constantly going back to my outline and constantly like reshaping it so that it maintains a cohesive, narrative, despite all the new crazy ideas that I'm throwing in there. So yes and no. I know where it's going. I always know where it's going, but I don't always see the whole picture. I like to discover things as I go along.
Cool. One of the things I would give you mad props for in the story is an incredibly diverse cast. It's an interesting cast of characters that have. Did we already talk about the poly thing, or was that before?
I mentioned it, but we haven't.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know if that was like a spoiler. So there are like different. There's like different sexuality. It's just very interesting. So as far as the characters go, talk to me about how you develop those and what that looks like for you. And are you a visual person? Is this boards? Is this like Pinterest? Is it something visually you're doing, or is it all written in your outline? Like, talk to us about your character development.
I am a very visual person when it comes to my writing, and pretty much anything really. Visuals are a big part of it. So a lot of index cards, a lot of color coding, stuff like that. A lot of like doodles of like what the world looks like or what the character looks like. But as far as the cast being diverse and everything, I appreciate the fact that people appreciate that in the book. But I'm always kind of surprised at how people point it out, and I'm like, the world, like, diversity is the norm. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you don't have diversity in a thing, whether it's a show or a movie or a book or whatever, somebody had to like decide to do it that way, because the actual truth of the world is diversity. I mean, go to New York City and walk around and tell me that you see two people that look alike. You won't. It's a mosaic of culture, and the whole world is, especially now with the adage of the internet and how interconnected we all are. The fact that we can talk to people on the other side of the planet and see them like this, like, that's crazy to me. And so diversity is normal for me. That's the baseline, really. And so I write characters that resemble people that I know or encounter in my life. My day job, I work in a hotel, so I do a lot of people watching. I meet very, very different people every single day, and I get a lot of character ideas from them. But also close friends and family, like Faye herself is based off of a combination of my wife and a close friend of ours who sadly passed away a few years ago. And Faye is sort of my tribute to her. And, Medalia, the main character, one would say, the detective of the story, is also, heavily based on my wife and myself. And it's weird because she's a female, but yeah, you find, these things, these elements that make up a person. And when you combine them together, you make a new person. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from is people watching, finding things that I find interesting, unique about people, and infusing that into my characters and into my stories.
I love that answer. So what is the thing that you have learned about yourself and your writing while working on the book? Like, what's the thing you've learned about yourself that's you didn't expect?
The thing I've learned about myself. Well, I've learned that I am capable of a lot more than I thought that I was. I have learned that there is way more time in the day than I give it credit for. One of my biggest excuses before I started writing this novel, one of my biggest excuses for not getting things done was, there's no time in the day. But when I really took a look at myself, when I was trying to make these word count goals every day, I realized, like, you say there's not enough time in the day, but what are you doing playing video games right now? Or what are you doing, watching this show that you've seen before? Why are you rewatching Breaking Bad again? Yeah, it's the greatest show ever made, but you've seen it 11 times. You don't need to watch it again. So it was things like that that made me realize I'm kind of full of shit. Like, there's lots of time in the day. Even being a parent, like, at some point they go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm still up. So ultimately there's no excuse. And that's kind of what I've learned about myself is that I was very excuse driven for too long. And now it's more about like, hey, let's get this thing done. You know what I mean? Sit down and get the work done.
Right. I love that answer as well. All right. So what would you say was the most challenging part of writing the book?
Ironically enough, finding the time. finding the time to write the book is probably the biggest challenge. I love writing. Editing is a whole other beast, but I love the end result of that as well. I think ultimately the biggest challenge is finding the time. Not because there's not enough time, as I said before, there's plenty of time, but that time is not always consecutive. And so sometimes you have to write 20 minutes here, 15, 20, 25 minutes there, 30 minutes there. And, it'll add up to 2 or 3 hours of writing in a day. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you got to do it that way. Sometimes you can sit down and write the whole thing, for 3 hours. But that's the biggest challenge, is finding the time and getting out of your own way,
That's a great tip I would say for anybody new, is the getting out of your finish. I always say finish, like just finish. Get it finished. And then
Ken Sean was the catalyst for this big change in me as a writer, because I edit a lot, because I write, with a plan, as I mentioned before, but also allow for unique ideas to kind of spark up. What that does is it makes me go back and edit previous chapters and put in, foreshadowing, all that kind of stuff. And that's great, but I'm not writing new chapters. And so I was going to send Kent Sean some chapters to read. He asked me for them. And I said, okay, give me like tonight to do a quick edit on them and I'll send them over. And he yelled at me. He's like, why are you editing? You're still in your first draft. Stop editing. Just write the thing. Get to the end. And I'm like, Jesus, okay. I'll get to the end. and I did it. I just stopped going back to edit. I fell into a rhythm with it where I'll write new stuff one night. The next time I sit down to write, I will edit what I wrote the day before, and then I'll write something new and continue moving forward. Always writing something new, always moving forward. So, that's the biggest thing. Is get out of your own way and finish, man. Get to the end.
That's killer advice. I wanted to ask you, what do you want folks to take away from book one? When they finish, what's the theme you want them to walk away with?
Each of these 3 books have a theme. I will leave it as vague as theme for book 1 is openness and communication. There's a lot of characters and situations in this first book where, hey man, why aren't you just sharing this information? Why aren't you just telling somebody? If you tell them, like, everything's different. And so that's kind of the big theme in this first book is being open and communicating fully with people. I think that's the big one for book 1. I want people to take away a love of my characters, a love of my world. I want them to want to come back for book 2. But if we're talking about lessons to learn, openness and communication.
So the last question for this section, we sort of touched on with how the story kind of kicked off, but the drug culture part of the prologue, but the drug culture in the story, is that something that we'll see more of as the story continues, or was that kind of a one-off thing? And also, to piggyback off of that answer, if drug culture is included in it, first of all, that's really brave. Because there will be a lot of people who will have strong opinions about that. And that's part of the reason I think it hasn't been included in more traditional publishing, especially for teens, YA.
Or genre books in general, like,
yes.
Don't really touch on
well, totally. The few times I've seen it done really well is usually fantasy, where they work it into something like an elixir, or, you know what I mean? It's like something like that. But you know what I mean? But it's still drug culture. I mean, it's still the same. You're still trying to tell the same story. So I love that you're using that. I think it's a really smart thing, because I think folks our age and younger do not care as much about that nonsense that our parents seem to care so much about. So talk to me about the conscious decision as well. So will we see more of that in the stories? And then kind of talk to me about your thought process for including it, because it is kind of brave.
You absolutely will see more of that in the story. I specifically made that chapter the prologue because I kind of want to set the stage and let people know, hey man, this is what you're getting into. You're going to see some drug stuff. It's going to happen. And part of the reason why I did that, there's two big reasons, or two big influences rather. Number one is the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin. One of the things that they use, that he uses a lot in there, is what he calls milk of the poppy, which is a medicine that they give people who have been injured to kill their pain. Milk of the poppy, poppy seeds. Mm-hmm. It's heroin. It's heroin. He's giving. He's writing about giving people heroin, and he's doing it in a roundabout way. And then you'll look at my favorite show again. I'll mention it, Breaking Bad. Drug culture, a huge part of that show, obviously. But in both of these cases, they are very negative aspects of these stories.
Ozark.
And
think about Ozark.
Ozark. Exactly. I love Ozark. And so,
it's a little close to home, but yeah.
And so in pop culture in general, I'm finding that drug culture is often depicted very negatively. And of course, there are horrible drugs out there. Heroin, like Jesus, meth, horrible. And you definitely want people to know that they are horrible and to see how bad they are. However, I found that things like marijuana are misrepresented in most of pop culture. And you either get the goofy stoner that's like, kind of a dum-dum and laughs at everything, or you get like the deadbeat who ruins his entire life. Yeah. You never get like the Seth Rogans or the Joe Rogans of this world who have turned their life of smoking weed into a multi-million-dollar, career. You know what I'm saying? Like it can be a very conductive force for creativity. And then, mushrooms being a very transformative experience for a lot of people. Some people
was just written up in the Times for microdosing. So the New York Times just did a whole piece on microdosing mushrooms. In the last Sunday or Sunday before.
People are able to kick their heroin addiction by using mushrooms and ayahuasca and DMT and other things like that. And so that's kind of where my head is at, is like, hey, people don't really get what this stuff really is. And I kind of want to throw it into a fictional setting where people might be a little more comfortable reading about it, because it's not real, because you're in space or you have, fantasy creatures or whatever it is. Like, it's a little more like acceptable and digestible to people. But I want to let you know, like, hey, this is what it's actually like as far as I'm concerned in my experience. But I'm also including made up stuff in my novel. There's a drug called Speedum, which is it's like crack. It's, it makes you crazy. And so I'm including the negative effects of horrible drugs in there as well, because obviously responsibly you have to show both if you are going to talk about drug culture. But I wanted to shine a light on drug culture and show that it's not this, dark, horrible thing that so many people think that it is. When my father found out that I, occasionally smoke weed, he reacted as though I told him I do heroin. Like that, he reacted like there was no difference between weed and heroin. And I'm like, dude, you just don't get it.
Big difference.
you just don't get it.
Big difference. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'll say this now and forever. But I would not have made it through this new chemo pill and the levels they're giving me if I did not have medicinal access to medicinal marijuana in my state. This would have been a rough year without it. So real talk, I will advocate for legal weed, and especially for medicinal purposes, but for all purposes actually, because it was incredibly helpful to me. So I appreciate you for doing that, because I like I said, I do think it's brave, because you will get some pushback, but I do think that things like Ozark, shows like Ozark, Breaking Bad, Weeds, have proven that there is interest in drug culture and in a representation of drug culture that isn't as the way it's been portrayed in the past. And I feel like that's being said a lot about like race LGBT. It's almost like a lot of different things are changing in publishing, which is good and needs to happen. But this is one that really, I'm tipping my hat to you on, and I won't waste more time on it, but I'm really proud of you for doing it, and thank you for doing it. I'm going to switch the topic to craft. Talk to me, and I'm doing it like whiplash you'll have. What craft book or advice do you swear by?
Oh, man. So here, where did I put it? Give me 1 second. Let me grab it.
No, take your time. I'm going to get some comments up. We've got people talking while we've been in our drug culture.
This might be the weirdest craft book that anybody is going to pitch, because it's not necessarily classified as a craft book. But this is the Book of Five Rings by the samurai Miyamoto Musashi. He lived in the 16th, 17th century, around there. And he's widely regarded as one of the greatest samurais that ever lived. He developed the two-sword technique. If you ever see an image of a samurai with a long sword and a short sword on their hip, he started that. And the reason that I am pitching this book as an answer to this question is because he was a samurai, but he was also an artist. He painted, he did poetry, he wrote books like this one. And the idea that he brought to everything was to touch upon all of the arts, to touch on everything, study everything, try it out, explore it as much as possible. Because if you're able to get good at a particular craft and good at another craft and good at another craft and good at another craft, you're going to start seeing the things that connect them all. You're going to start seeing all of the things that sort of make up creativity in general. And so he, one of his adages in here is to forge yourself in the way. And he capitalizes the word way, because once you know the way, you will find it in all things. And so that's kind of the a lot of people swear by the book, The War of Art, which I've also read and was very helpful to me. But people don't talk about this one enough. You don't have to be a martial artist to read this thing. You don't have to be a swordsman or anything like that. There is a lot of sword technique in this book and stuff like that. But the first chapter is all about art and how to incorporate it in all its forms into what you do, whatever it is that you do. And that's probably the biggest influence on me as a creative person in general, is to find the thing that makes everything sort of connect and come together, and then go that way. And that's where I'm coming from. Freaking samurais, man.
Totally, I love that answer. That's great. That's unique. That's different. We've had nothing like that. Way to go. Now, here's one for you. What would you say is your writing kryptonite?
The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. That game is what, 4 or 5 years old. I can't stop playing it. I just can't. It's so stinking good. It's a playground, and I can't put it down. Like, every time I think I'm done with it, I go back to it, and I'm almost disappointed in myself, because I'm like, I thought I was done, but here I am again playing it. I can't stop. And the sequel is coming on next year, and it's going to tie me up for the next 5 years. So
I love everything about that answer.
That's my writing kryptonite, man. That's the thing that takes me away from the desk more than anything else.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So talk to me about the series overall. Do you want each book to be sort of be able to stand on its own, or will they build towards the final story? What I mean by that is someone going to be okay to pick up book 2 and know what's going on? Or are you really hoping people start at the beginning? Obviously every author does, but is your series going to be one that's a start at book 1 in order to understand everything at the end? Or how are you doing that?
I hope that each book, my intention is that each book will stand on its own independently. One of the big things that I'm influenced by is the movie The Dark Knight. Obviously, this incredibly successful film, but you don't have to have seen Batman Begins to watch The Dark Knight. You can just dive into it. You cannot say the same thing about the third movie in that trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. You cannot just dive into that one because it connects to the first two. So yes, my books will build to a climax, but I have planned for time jumps between each book, so that when you start each book, It's in a whole new place. We're not picking up exactly where we left off. We've jumped some time. Characters have evolved a little bit, and we have to learn how they've evolved. And that's where you get backstory and flashbacks and all that kind of stuff. And that's the goal, is to make it so that you can conceivably pick up my second book, and it has a beginning, middle, and end, and it will make sense and be cohesive in and of itself. You'll have to meet the characters, for the first time as you're going through, but that's my intention, is to make that book stand on its own. And hopefully pull it off for the third book as well. That's going to be the real challenge, is making the third book stand on its own, because it's the end, it's the culmination. You know what I mean? Like, that'll be a challenge, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah. So what would you say? Let's see. What would you say success looks like to you?
Ooh. Success. As a writer, success looks to me like I no longer have to have a day job. I can support myself and my family by writing books and selling those books. That is ultimately success, commercial success, professional success. Now, if we're talking about creative success, even if I only sell one copy, if my book is good and that one person who read it tells me, hey, man, this book is awesome, that's success. You know what I mean? Like, it comes down to what you're looking for out of your project. And in my case, I am looking for a splashy debut, a great first novel, and the ability to stop punching a clock, working for some other dude who's making way more money than I am, while I'm doing all of the grunt work. I want those days behind me. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and spend the morning with my kids, and then go into my office, do some writing for a couple of hours, go back, play with my kids some more, go back into the office, write a little more. That's success to me, is when my job is at home and I'm readily available and accessible to everybody. There's nothing worse than being at work and getting a call from your wife that some emergency is happening with the kids, and I have the car, she has no way of going to get medicine or whatever it is, and I have to go to somebody and ask them, beg them to let me leave to take care of my child. Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. I don't want to have to do that. So that's success to me, is being a professional on my own.
Yeah. You're laying the groundwork. You're building the foundation. Do you believe in writer's block?
I used to. I no longer do. Writer's block is only a thing to those who believe that it's a thing. There is so many different ways. There are, proper English, so many different ways to battle what everyone describes as writer's block. Ironically enough, that's one of the things that I will be covering in the courses that I'm going to be putting out on my new platform. But the cliff notes are that even if you have no ideas, even if you cannot, if you sit down at your computer and you're staring at a blank screen and nothing is coming out, there are ways to combat that. One of the biggest ways that I go about it is free writing. I set a timer for 45 minutes, and I hit that timer and I start typing. I have no ideas. I have nowhere to go. I start with, I don't know what to write. I have no idea what I'm writing. This is nonsense. None of this makes sense. But before you know it, something comes out of that. By the time that 45-minute timer goes off, you have hit some sort of a stride, some sort of a stride. That's the proper word for it. And so you can choose at the end of those 45 minutes to continue writing if you're on a roll, or to stop and look at what you've written and search for things that you can grab out of there. Oh, this is a cool idea. This is a neat idea. So no, I no longer believe in writer's block. I just believe in folks just not having the inspiration in the moment and having to seek it out. A lot of new writers think that inspiration just comes to you, that you just sit down and you're like, oh, I have a great idea. It doesn't always happen like that, man. Sometimes you got to make it happen. And, that's the challenge as a writer, is to come up with something new and exciting and fun. There are ways to do it. There's no such thing as writer's block. Fight it.
Yeah, I work with kids at an LGBT center here locally, and one of the things I always tell them is that you don't pursue happiness. That's a fruitless game. Create it and make it for yourself. And I want them to do that. Are you ready for my
I'm
favorite.
terrified of this section. I'm terrified.
You're gonna love every second of it. Okay,
Oh,
I'm gonna
no.
put you on big screen, and here we go. And everybody, if you want to keep up in the comments with your answers, we will check them out on the flip side. Adrian, do you have any questions for me before I dig in?
No, I don't think
Okay. Here we go. So basically the goal here is one word, maybe two, short as possible, and just the first thing that pops in your mind. You are allowed to skip if there is something you don't want to answer. Here we go.
Okay.
What is your best virtue?
Sense of humor? Is that a virtue?
Yeah. What is your biggest vice?
Weed, probably.
That isn't a,
Yeah.
oh, come on. I don't know if that's a vice.
It kind of is. Again, drug culture. Think about it.
Morning person or night owl?
I have become a morning person. I used to be a night owl, but I've become a morning person.
Okay. What sin are you unable to forgive?
What was that one?
So like of the 7 deadly sins, what are you unable to forgive?
Unable to forgive. Just straight up betrayal, man. Betrayal is just, it's the worst.
What sin do you most often commit? What's something you do?
I don't know if this is true anymore, but for the longest time it was lying. I had a real problem, and I eventually discovered that is where storytelling was coming from for me. I like telling stories even if they weren't true. But that was a problem for me for a long time.
I think that's all storytellers. What annoys you the most?
In general,
yeah.
Politics.
Okay. What is your least favorite word?
I don't know. Past that, I'll come back to that one.
Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck. Obviously.
No, that's mine too. It's a classic. You can use it with so much.
It's so versatile.
Totally. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
Love that answer. What smell reminds you of home?
Plantains.
Ooh. Where are you the most inspired?
Probably in my bedroom.
What
my safe space. What frightens me? Serial killers.
That's fair. What sound can always make you smile?
A baby's laugh. When my son laughs, I melt.
Perfect. You survived. That's it.
That was it.
That's it.
Fast.
There's 14 to 15.
What was the one I skipped? My least favorite word?
What's your least favorite word? And by the way, okay, fair. The most common answer to that, I've had 4, is moist.
Oh, I love the word moist.
Whatever. I'm just telling you.
Don't know
if I were to do a study on that answer, like what people most say is their least favorite word, it's I've gotten moist 4 times.
My favorite moment in the show New Girl was where Coach and Bishop, where Coach and Bishop were competing with each other about they were going to make cakes. They were each going to make a cake for a birthday party, and Coach says, "I'm going to make the cake so moist that girls are going to be like, ew, I hate that word," but then they're going to take a bite and be like, "Damn, that's moist." It's my favorite moment of that show. Damn, that's moist.
Megan says she believes in writer's block. I have to work hard for every idea I get. That's interesting, Megan. And by the way, I would love to have you on to chat. We can talk all about it, because that's a new question I'm asking everyone that's on, is whether they believe in writer's block or not. Not whether they've had it, but they believe in it. I have never had writer's block. I believe that some people may feel blocked, but I think they aren't actually blocked. They just need to sort of reevaluate. I tend to agree with that. Or I always say walk away and come back. Like if you hit a block, leave it and come back later. Give it some space, give it some breathing room. Never had my face. I'm wondering. Oh, he was answering a question. I bet. Okay. My virtue, your face. You were absolutely right, Richard. Dull face. Aphrodite Lee. I have told my husband I would have a giant crush on Richard if I were a single young man and Richard played on my team. I would be madly in love with him, I think.
He's a cutie.
He's a funny one. He makes me laugh. That's what it is. Oh, here comes the pineapple on pizza discussion. God, Richard brings that here every time.
No. Get out.
Count on it. Oh, I like this. Lark or owl?
Probably owl.
Okay, yeah,
Probably.
I love owls. Lust. Okay, see, I was kind of hoping somebody would say lust too. Nobody's ever said lust, and like that would totally have been the one that I had probably been guilty of in my past. Gluttony, the one I'm guilty of most often. This would be the other one that I am quite guilty of often. Sloth.
Yeah, I'm probably guilty of sloth a lot more than any of the other ones
Right?
too. Yeah.
Okay. Moist. See, I told you, moist. Come up. Oh no, here's one. Is this the one you hate? Yeah. Or is that your favorite bad word? Oh, I love this one. That's very British. I wish I could get away with using that
Prick
one more.
is very British. Yeah. It's also not that bad. Like anytime somebody calls somebody a prick, I'm like, is that all you got? Like, come on.
I know.
Man.
I'm like, oh, thanks.
Thanks.
The shower. Anywhere, sharks. I do get inspired in the shower though. So that's, but I'm a shower singer. So what can I say? All right, I am turning it over to live chat questions. We had a few. I'm going to run back and pull them up for you. Give me just a second because I'm not as talented as you with the multiple things at once. I'm madly impressed with your ability to talk and function the comments and all the stuff at the same time, because I struggle there.
I don't know what setup you have, but I do have 2 monitors. Like if I didn't have the 2 monitors, I wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, like I'll be talking to you here and I'm looking at the chat here and I'm like typing and I'm grabbing stuff and like, yeah. And I'll warn people when they come onto the show. I'm like, hey man, just because I'm not looking at you doesn't mean I'm not listening. I'm just doing a bunch of stuff at once. I'm listening, but I'm doing stuff.
Yeah, no, I remember you telling me that, but I watched and just was in awe. I like this one. What inspired your title? I know because I read. It kind of makes sense to me because I've read the first 5 chapters, so I get it. But explain what the spark is.
It's hard to answer that question without getting into spoilers. So I will say this: when I did decide on the title for it, the title for the series being Mythic came from the idea that even though I'm writing sci-fi, I'm also writing fantasy at the same time, genre bending. And one of the things that I really, really love is long-standing mythical characters and their reimaginings, people coming at them from a new angle. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with the fantasy element in my book. I'm trying to reach back into some of the more mythical things that you're used to seeing in fantasy and tweaking them and making them my own. On the flip side, the sci-fi stuff, when you're telling stories that take place well into the future, the things that happened well in the past become mythological. They become myths and legends. And that's kind of where the name of the series came from, as being Mythic. As far as the title for the first book, I can't answer that without spoilers, but I will say that I had to title all 3 books before I announced the title for the first one. So I know all 3 titles, and the title for book 2 is my favorite.
I like that cliffhanger. By the way, on the subject of potential taboo subjects, you said the book talks about polyamory. Is this a similar approach to the drug culture thing? Please explain.
Yes, it is. I have some, my 3 main characters all fall somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum. And even some of my supporting characters, quite honestly, most of the friends in my life fall on that spectrum. So again, when it comes to creating characters, that's what I'm drawing from. I'm drawing from what I know. So even though I'm a straight male who's married and has kids, I just have a very, special love for the LGBTQ community. And so I wanted to include that into my book. But also, it wasn't so much a deliberate thing. It really comes down to my previous answer about diversity being the norm. And so, yes, I'm trying to
feel gratuitous when you're reading it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, make it like it's not the point of the whole book or anything like that. But there are polyamorous characters, and by the end, there is a polyamorous thing that happens. And one of the things that really stressed me out when Meg Latour, is it Latour or Latore? When she put out her book, everybody started talking about the ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending here, but her ending has an element to it that's very similar to an element in my ending, and I really struggled with that, and I thought about axing it completely. But ultimately it's going to stay because my characters are who they are, and what's happening is going to happen, and it doesn't matter that somebody else did it because I'm gonna do it my way.
And somebody's already done everything. You know what I mean? I always remind myself, somebody's already done everything. So like, just put your spin on it and put it out there. It's going to be amazing.
But I want to come to it with the same kind of respect that I'm coming at the drug culture stuff with, and I want to shine a light on it in the same kind of respectful way that I'm shining a light on drug culture. So yes, those two things are going to be treated very similarly with a lot of respect and care as far as I'm concerned.
Side note and question about this, specifically on polyamory, because again, similar to drug culture, I think there is a lot of misunderstandings around what that looks like in practice. So like, where did you, that's so specific. Where did that come from for you? Was that something that you had encountered in your life and thought that's really interesting? I'm going to include that, or kind of talk to me about that thought process.
Well,
there.
You know, polyamorous relationships have become very, very popular, content on social media these days. You know, there's at least a couple of thruples that I follow, either on TikTok or on Instagram, and
what we're doing now.
It's and it's fascinating to me. It's just a way of life that at the same time makes every bit of sense to me, and yet feels completely alien to how I live my life. And that's kind of where that came from, is this interest in, like, yeah, when you tell me about polyamory, it makes 100% complete sense. I understand it. And in fact, I can even see myself, exploring that myself. And yet I actually have no desire to explore that because it's not who I am. And that's kind of where the interest came from, is this idea that, like, it makes complete sense, and yet it's not for everybody. And because it's not for everybody, most people have a huge misunderstanding about what it actually is and what it actually entails. One of the biggest things that made me do it was when I saw so many polyamorous people on social media get put down by monogamous people, calling them slutty, calling them this and that, saying that you just want to sleep around, whatever it is. And my understanding of it was, a lot of those same people will say that, oh, you have a fear of commitment or whatever. And I'm like, but if you're having multiple long-term relationships, it's the exact it's the exact opposite of a fear. Yeah, you're double, triple committed in some cases.
Right.
So that was the big spark for me, was like, these people don't get it. I get it, so let me show it to them.
Well, and the key to that is communication. So the poly people that I know in my life,
openness and communication.
That's the key. And what's so funny to me about the judgment of the poly stuff, my husband and I are the same. I mean, we kind of look at it and think, wow, that's like, we could not see it for ourselves, but like,
But it makes complete sense. Yeah. Go you.
Like,
do your thing.
I get it. Like, believe me, I get it. I was in my 20s as a gay man. I know exactly what you're doing out there. Go you. But what I found is that it's just the same as Ricky and I. It's just more cooks in the kitchen. It's just more communication, more boundaries, more people in that circle, but it still is controlled, and nobody's like running around hoeing it up. Like, anyway, that's a misconception. So I'm glad you're shining a light on that. Wait, mad props. Do you have a 5-year plan? And that's an odd spin-off of the polyamory conversation. I don't think for getting into a poly relationship. I think she means like author-wise, like brand-wise.
Yes. I hope to have my book out in stores by next year. I hope to have book 2 out 2 years after that. And I hope to have book 3 out 2 years after that. So that is a pretty good, like, 5-year plan right there. The rebranding that we're doing and all the designs that we're doing for this new look for Books by Adrian and everything incorporated in Books by Adrian should be the norm for the next 5 to 10 years, honestly. I want it to stick around and be me, be recognizably me for as long as it can be. My big pie in the sky goal is, by the 3rd book at the latest, I want to be a full-time self-published author and nothing else. I don't want to work a day job. If I can pull that off the first book, fantastic. But that might be a little,
Yeah, might be hard.
it might be a little, it might be a little too big of a dream, really.
Well,
But yeah,
I don't know that it's too big a dream. It's possible. I believe anything's possible. So
definitely possible.
But I love what I think I love about you the most is owning it. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many people I have on here. That's a great question, by the way, Minx/Aphrodite. That's a great question.
Thanks.
I ask a lot of people that question, and the tendency, I think, is to be somewhat humble about what you want. And I love your knowing yourself well enough to say, no, actually, this is what I want, and here's when I want it, and I think that's good. I think it's good to have an identifiable goal. Do you prefer handwritten drafts or a computer?
Before I discovered Dabble, I don't know how familiar people are with dabblewriter.com, but before I discovered that, I was very tactile. I had index cards, like I said before, a lot of color coordination. I had boards, I had stuff on. Fortunately, Dabble, like Scrivener, provides a digital version of all that stuff. And it's all interconnected where if I'm working on index cards, I can literally push a button and I'm in my manuscript and the index cards are already in there and I can type away. It's incredibly versatile. And so these days I'm almost entirely digital, but I do still have a notebook that I throw ideas down when I'm not near my computer. And I just have some kind of jotted down. But I can even write on my phone these days. I can just have Dabble on my phone and just write on my phone. So yeah, I'm almost 100% digital these days.
Cool. Megan, I am going to send you a link in DM, just so you know. It's easier sometimes to talk than for me to type. And I was telling Adrian before, my new thing that lifts my computer up, unfortunately, wiggles when I type. So that's why I'm not answering a lot of you in chat.
My desk is very wobbly, so like I try not to touch it.
It's like I'm really careful. Okay, I like this question from Nana. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice on writing, what would you most have liked to have known before becoming a writer?
If I had any advice for myself, it would be to start earlier. And I don't know that that's a really good answer to your particular question, but yeah, man, I feel like I wasted a lot of time. I'm putting out, my book next year. I'll be 37 at that point. You
old thing. They should just put you to sleep at that age. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. All these grays.
We're a year apart. I feel you. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. So yeah, I definitely would have told myself to start earlier, and to read more. That's the big one, is read a lot more, because once you start writing, you'll have less time to read, and reading is essential to being a good writer. And reading many different things, write things outside your genre, or read things outside your genre, read things outside your comfort zone. It'll make you a better writer. So that's I think the biggest one is just read, man. Anything you can get your hands on, read it.
I love that. Just so everyone knows, Aphrodite writes new songs in the shower. Richard kills them in the shower. So two sides of the same coin.
I don't sing anywhere, even in the shower. I don't sing anywhere.
Not even for like a karaoke, like night out with your friends.
You just described my worst fear in life, bro. Karaoke? Are you kidding me? No way. I'll run for the hills. No.
I keep waiting for someone to invite me to a karaoke party on YouTube, and no one's done it yet. And I'm so I'm a little miffed about it, truth be told.
Barrett, if no one's done it yet and you want it to happen, that means you got to do it.
Oh, I can't take on anymore. I don't know. I don't have the bandwidth. I can't do any more programming. Would you? Oh, I love this question. Nana's doing a series on this right now on her channel. Would you ever consider co-authoring in a different genre, or actually just at all? Would you ever?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The graphic novel that I mentioned earlier that I kind of set aside for a later time in my life. That was my first foray into co-authoring something. I basically put a writer's room together for that one. We had like 4 dudes in a room kicking story ideas back and forth for a good, 4 or 5 months. So yeah, I'm 100% into co-authoring stuff. If anybody wants to do stuff, reach out to me.
Okay, love that. Nana's like killing the questions. People are throwing out signs in the chat. I'm a Virgo. What are you?
Libra.
Libra. Okay, I can kind of see that. Okay.
It's all about balance, man. It's all about balance.
Yes, I can see all that. Okay, will you be doing any more writing contests that will be set to music, or just writing contests in general? I loved your writing contest.
That was a really fun one.
Yeah.
And I do have to apologize to anyone who's been waiting for the final video with the music and everything in it. That's going to take a little while because Adrian, who works on the music, has been working on my stuff, and he's busy. So we'll get to it eventually, I promise. But to answer your question, yes, there will be more writing contests, especially with the launch of this new platform being geared towards new writers and first-time writers. I intend on doing some excuse me, some writing contests in the near future. Stay tuned for that. I don't know what yet. I'm working on ideas.
Well, and I was going to throw this out on a DM, but I'm going to throw it out because a lot of these people are AuthorTube people anyway. I did have the idea that some of us could go in together and say, you know, I'll Venmo you 100 or 50, whatever, you know, whatever you had as a prize, someone has as a prize, go in together, some of us, and then again, use our platforms to try to get a wider net of people to participate.
I like that idea.
As a big collab together. So if anybody wants to consider doing something like that, find me in the DMs and let's talk about it. I like this question. If you had, let's get it up there. If you had to live in a sci-fi world or a fantasy world, where would you feel the most at home and why?
That's such a hard question to answer. I've gotten that question before, and I find it hard because most fictional worlds are pretty horrible to live in. Because it's a story. You need a whole bunch of conflict. Like, I love the Song of Ice and Fire books, but I wouldn't want to live in Westeros. I'd be the first dude decapitated for, you know, like looking at some rich dude's daughter or something. Like, I don't know. Like I can't.
No. Doing his son. What are you talking about?
No thanks. But if I had to choose one, it would probably be the world of the Matrix. Because being able to jack into the digital world and do crazy stuff and then, you know, jack out of it and fight some squid robots and like all that stuff is just super cool.
This is the point where I need to admit, I think it was with you. I'm on a live stream with you where you and Kent Sean went on a Matrix like rabbit hole. And I had to admit, I've never seen them.
You heathen.
Any of them. So I will watch The Matrix because you told me then that I need to watch it just for the story, you know, arc thing. But again,
look, man, here's the thing.
Yes.
I can give you a pass for not seeing the sequels. Not everybody loves them. They're not for everybody. I love them, but not everybody does. But that first movie is one of the most perfect movies ever made and has one of the most perfect.
Yeah, well, we lost Adrian. He'll be back. But I'm just going to say in response to that, I agree that it was a big deal. I'm just going to remind everyone, I talked earlier about how I was a little angsty in 1999, 98, those years, which I'm pretty sure is when The Matrix dropped. Like, I wasn't doing a whole lot of theater time. I was doing a whole lot of, like, other nonsense that was way distracting. No, you're good. I was just telling them, the only reason I didn't see The Matrix, for my own defense, was remember I mentioned I fell into drug culture and did a little like rebellion in the late 90s. That is pretty sure when Matrix dropped was around that time. I was spending a lot more time, like raves.
98, 99.
Right. Like I was doing like raves and like not coming home and like
you may have seen it and don't even remember.
Yeah, who knows? I could have seen it and not even know. So I could be doing AFRA checks right now.
Watch the first one. It's totally worth your time. It's been like copied so many times that you're going to see stuff that you're like, oh, I've seen this before. But the structure of that story, the storytelling.
Yeah. I've heard you guys went deep. I felt like I know the story from like the talk you guys had on it that night. So, I like this. If you had to write a pitch for your life thus far, what would you say?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's a good question.
That's a really good question. A pitch for my life so far as a story. A pitch for my life as a story.
Yeah.
Okay. The story of a nomadic person who has roots in several different places, coming to find his place in the world, marrying his sweetheart, and spawning some crazy little hellspawn that will someday take over the world.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's like, yeah.
I like that. That's good. On the spot, that's good. Okay, seriously. Richard, at 9, I still would have taken you to the rave, and people would have loved you. And I would have scored better E if you'd have been with me.
The rave child.
You know, I had a moment where I was like, it was a moment. So I will never show those pictures of that time. There was lots of choices that I deeply, deeply regret.
Speaking of pictures, not to steal your show from you for a second here, but
steal.
I gotta say, the logo photo that you use across all your platforms, it doesn't even look like you anymore, man. You need to update that picture. It doesn't look like you.
I gained 70 pounds from all the steroids I took. That was a picture I took 3 months before I went into flare and went on to steroids and gained 60 pounds in like 2 months.
Well, I'll tell you what, you look way healthier, my friend.
Oh God. Okay. Well, no, I will take a picture. I haven't left my house since this started. So until I can leave the bubble, I probably won't do an update to the photography, but I did. That's a friend of mine. If anyone wants to know who that photographer is in the St. Louis area, let me know and I will connect you with her. She also makes very expensive wedding cakes. Okay. I found the questions. Okay. Caught back up. Here we go. Do you have a graveyard drawer for drafts?
Yes, I call it the scrap heap. Yeah, any idea that I have that I don't have a place for, or that doesn't develop any further, yeah, I have like a folder where I throw all those ideas in, and a lot of the ideas in Mythic came from that folder. You know, I've talked about how it's kind of this hodgepodge of a bunch of different ideas. A lot of them came from that, so that's a really big recommendation for a lot of first-time writers is to just have a folder where you can throw in ideas, even if you think they're terrible, because you might have a good idea for how to use them later on, and it's good to have them right there for you to grab.
That's an amazing answer. See, Richard Holiday, you're on one. He's on it tonight.
Richard is stealing the show tonight. I'm feeling a little attacked, a little jealous.
He is on one. I'm loving it though. He's keeping it real. I'm down. See, and Aphrodite said they do karaoke on. I must have missed it. I remember seeing Aphrodite sing a few times on karaoke, like when we were having tech difficulties, she'd start singing. But like I'm talking, like I was kind of hoping for like a bunch of people getting on there and like embarrassing ourselves collectively.
I will watch, but I will not participate.
Okay, fine. Well, then you know what? I'll let you dance when we're at a wedding at some point in the future.
That I'll do.
Oh, I'm not doing that. That's not for white people.
I'm a terrible dancer, but I'm not as shy about it as I am about singing.
We'll see. There you go. I will sing for you. I will get up and embarrass us there, and you handle the dancing. I want to hear about the other nonsense now.
Oh man, I'm sure we missed whatever. Yeah, we mentioned nonsense at some point.
Yeah, we must have. They'd have to catch me up. Okay, I'm going to ask some of my questions. What is a genre that you'd write in that would surprise your readers?
I would love to write a big romance someday. There's a romantic subplot in my novel, but I don't know. There's something about people who can write a whole novel just about a relationship that really, really interests me. And I find, I don't know, like if the book is really good, I hold you in high regard as a reader, because if there's no other genre going on, it's not a murder mystery, it's not a fan, it's just a romance, and you can just nail it, you got it, man. So that's probably the big one is someday writing a straight up romance.
Honestly, I don't think I was ready for that answer. However, it shouldn't surprise me, because didn't you say that on the Nina Moreno?
Did I may have. I don't know.
I think you did, because she was talking about her story, which is amazing. If you guys did not watch that live stream, please.
So good.
I probably won't tonight, because I get done with these and I kind of walk away from the computer for a day. But tomorrow I will add chapters to this, and I will also include the link to the one you did with your partner. We talked about that video. Any of the videos we talked about, I will link to down in the description below so you can go and watch them. The Nina Moreno, I can't advise enough, especially if anyone's considering traditional publishing at all. Get in there. I completely hijacked poor Adrian's live stream question section, And
you did that day. But
100%.
you know, you said anyone who's considering traditional publishing, I would recommend it to anyone who is vehemently opposed to traditional publishing, because I was for so long, and that episode really opened my eyes to the possibilities, you know, and I since then have considered it very heavily because of that episode. So I recommend it.
Well, and one of the things I think that she brought up that was so interesting for anybody thinking self-pub, and this is true for anybody that watches the Courtney Project on YouTube as well. She's a popular romance author, Kennedy Fox, one half of that duo. But she will be the first one to tell you that their agent makes like 30 or 40% of their annual income just from selling their books internationally. So the international rights, and I think they just got a film right sold. So anyway, just keep that in mind for folks that are doing self. That doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't want to work with an agent later. It just, they're more likely to come to you than it's going to be you going to them in that situation. So watch that video with Nina Moreno and be sure to catch the second half of it. I think is when it got into the weeds on her.
Your memory is impeccable, bro. Like, you're blowing me away right now.
It's a weird, it's a weird thing. Since a kid, I can look at stuff and or see it and remember it in like timeline. It's a weird
bananas.
For my husband in fights, he hates it, but it's
because you always remember what he said like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. And when he said it and what the attitude was, and
no.
And he's got where he doesn't fight it anymore, where he's just oh yeah, you're right. And then I get flowers, which he and Colin were talking about earlier. He sent me these.
I consider myself incredibly lucky that my wife just does not have a very good memory, and you know, sometimes it's a problem that we have to like, hey, don't you remember that we talked about this? But other times it's like, oh, she doesn't remember that I already said this. Okay,
yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. That's a power I have where he doesn't, because he doesn't. He once it's over, especially if it was an argument of any kind, it's over for him. It's over, and I'm a Virgo, so for me, it's really never over.
Virgos.
Let's just remember that it's never over, and I'm organizing your house for you as you sleep.
My wife's a Leo, so she's like the center of the universe.
She's a yeah. Yeah. Oh, Leo and Libras, you guys would be. That's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know that we weren't necessarily a match, but we work great.
Right. I was gonna say, they say Ricky and I wouldn't be, but we are. I like this question. Let's toss this up there. What is your favorite archetype to write?
Ooh, my favorite archetype to write. That is a good question. I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite, but if we're going by my favorite character to write in this book, again, that would be Faye. And she's the kind of hippie chick in the story, and you know, she brings a lot of the fantasy element into it. So that would make her kind of a witchy kind of character, and maybe that's my favorite right now. At least it may not always be my favorite, but it is right now.
Yeah, I like that. I like this question a lot. What is your most hated trope, and which is your favorite?
Most hated trope, the love triangle. It's annoying. Knock it off. And my favorite trope, that's harder to pinpoint, but maybe like anti-heroes, you know, like a really dark character who does things for altruistic reasons, but yeah. Hey, like Breaking Bad.
And Dark Knight. You said you like Dark Knight, which, hello. Yeah, oh, I know. I have a Batman obsession. It's unhealthy.
It's the best.
Agreed. What is your most valuable writing resource? Love this question.
Dabble is a good one. AuthorTube is another. But ultimately, my own scrap heap is probably the best one. Like whenever you have, especially if you're keeping a scrap heap, as I call it, when you're facing writer's block, as we talked earlier, just diving into that and going like way back into stuff that you forgot that you wrote and finding things where you're like, oh, I wrote this terribly, but it's a good idea. And now I'm a better writer and I can make this idea work. That's an incredible writing resource. So that's another, point for the scrap heap.
That is a gold tip right there. I really, really enjoy that tip. Okay, Nana had a couple others here. Let's see. No, I think I got those. Oh, here we go. If you were to compare you to a character in The Lord of the Rings, Which character do you most identify with, and why?
Oh man, everybody wants to say Sam, but I'm probably more of a Frodo. Um, I I think it's because of an innate ability to carry some weight. When things are like weighing you down and really like causing incredible stress and strife in your life, but you have to keep going. That's kind of where I'm coming from. It's like, hey man, like, yeah, sometimes stuff sucks, but you still got to get through the day. You still got to get your job done. And you still got to get to Mordor and throw that ring into the freaking
That's right.
volcano. So, Frodo.
Okay. Doctor Who.
Love Doctor Who.
Oh, I do too.
Who doesn't?
Okay, we're back to the nonsense. Okay, now I'm back to this is when I need help. I'm like, someone come run this for me.
Nonsense.
All right. My memory is crap. Okay, I know where we are. I am a slow burner, and it comes through in passive aggression. Oh, that's nice. Oh, here we go. I am the worst person to fight with because I can recall verbatim. You and me, Aphrodite. We'd be in trouble if we ever fought with each other. Probably. Let's not do that. Let's avoid that. I'm a Libra. My son is a Leo. That's always interesting mix. Those two personalities. Trixie's memory always works when it comes to my mouthier moments. She can quote me word for word. She's an Aries. Oh, holy moly! My sister's an Aries, Colin. Whoa, those Aries can have a fiery temper when they're angry. Any
Good luck,
combo?
Colin.
Do well with Virgos, but that's bollocks. Yeah, I feel you on that. I don't think the combos always make sense. Deadpan snarker, that's my favorite. Yeah, me too. I like the TV tropes. Me too. 2 of my ex-wives were Virgos. We're still friends now. Well, that's because we're amazing. So,
Colin, I did not know that you had been married 2 times previously to the one you
don't think I knew that either, actually.
Yeah. Revelations about Colin Clark.
Yeah, we're really getting. Well, he's coming on with me. He just turned in his stuff.
Oh, he's the best.
I'll be getting in touch with him to come on. I can't wait. Love at first sight. Oh, you know what? Love at first sight is a trope that could be done for me forever. I don't get love at first sight. I don't know. Especially for kids stories, because I think it sets up a false belief.
Yeah. You know what? You're right, because a lot of the stories that I would read or watch in movies or whatever as a kid had that love at first sight thing, and I that was ingrained in me.
Right.
And for so long, my biggest problem with relationships was just falling too hard at first. You know what I mean? And that's where that comes from. So that's a very, very good one. But, there's a difference between tropes and tropes that become cliche. And love at first sight is definitely a huge cliche at this point. So, yeah, screw that.
Oh, here's someone new to my channel, and I just met recently. Author Jason Carter says hello. I think she's on your channel, though, pretty regularly, right?
I've seen her before. Yes, hi.
Yes, welcome. Colin Clark, we Aries chicks have total recall and are great fighters. That's 100% true. I forgot you're Aries, Aphrodite. I always forget that. And I've now been happily unmarried to Trixie for 15 years. My mother, who's been divorced a couple of times, would probably agree with you, my friend.
Colin is the best, man. I love that dude.
I know, same. Here we go. What has been the best moment for you in this interview, other than being with me?
Oh man, that's hard. This whole interview has been a lot of fun. The rapid fire questions was very stressful, so that's probably it.
You know what's funny? Everybody who does this, that's the part they afterwards will say, if I ask and write back and say, hope you had a good time or whatever, they'll always come back and say, I love the rapid fire part. And that truly was an afterthought that just kind of stuck.
From the moment that I read your outline and saw the rapid fire question, and I've seen your show before, so I knew that they were there. But when I saw it meant for me, I was like, oh no.
I know. Everybody gets nervous. It's like, I'm not going to hit you with something, I'm not going to hit you out of nowhere. Oh, good. Everybody welcome.
What's up, Jason?
Yes, this is good. Love at first sight is not real for sure. I like it because I like watching crap fall apart. I'm weird. I'm there for that, right? Like and here's the thing, that's a great way to subvert a trope, actually, is to take a trope that's really common and flip it on the story. So what I'm expecting doesn't happen. Then I'm there for that trope all day long. Like,
now here's the thing. I full on am tired of the cliche of love at first sight. However, my story with my wife is very much a love at first sight kind of story.
Is it really? Will you tell us that? Can you tell us that story?
So Cliff Notes, I was working in a mall. I was working at the Hot Topic at the time. I was 20 years old or so.
So clearly I was shopping there when I was going through my angsty period.
Dude, I loved Hot Topic. I lived
I
there.
got my black eyeliner, so you know.
And my particular store's location in a mall was the door faced the food court. And there was this gorgeous woman working at the pizza place and just from afar, like I would just stand and just stare like really creepily, like this woman is beautiful. She's the most incredibly beautiful woman I've ever seen. And there was this really cool like gay dude that worked with us who came up and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm gonna marry that girl." And he goes, "What's her name?" I said, "I have no idea. I've never spoken to her, but I'm gonna marry her." And he was like, "Wait here." And he walked across the food court and I'm like panicking the whole time.
Yeah.
And he went to her and he basically hit on her for me. He was like, "Hey, my friend thinks you're really hot and he wants to like marry you and stuff. Go talk to him." Eventually she came into the store to shop and he like forced us to speak and the rest is history. So, you know, there is a little something to that.
I love that. Well, that explains also your love for the gays. We were right in the middle of it. The nonsense. Richard, remind me what the nonsense was, and then I can remind you if it was me wearing guy liner.
He keeps bringing up the nonsense. What is the nonsense?
Me and guy liner, and trust me, it's not that impressive. I liked this question. This is a good one. If you were interviewing me, what 3 questions would you ask? That's a good one. While Richard tells me what the nonsense is, because I can't remember what I was talking about.
Number 1, what is
nonsense years?
What is it? Oh, the nonsense years.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so question number 1, what is your dream project? The thing that you are going to be remembered for the rest of your life once you eventually put it out?
It won't be for books. That'll surprise people. I want to be a showrunner. So I would like to have some of the stories I write, I'd like to develop them and I'd like to run the show. So I'd like to produce it. And you're going to see some of that because I'm going to do some different projects this year. I want to do some podcasting that's cast, not with anybody famous, but actors I know here in St. Louis just to work with on some podcasting stuff. But you're going to see some of that on my channel throughout this next year. So no, that's my answer. It would not actually be for a book. Yeah,
that's a good answer. It's a good answer. Question number 2.
Yeah.
Do you and your husband consider having children?
Yes, and I have no idea. So yes, we've considered it. So not right now because of health stuff. But we're at that point where it's like, he's 40, and I'm 38. I'll be 39 this year. So we're getting to that point where we're kind of looking at each other like, do you want to be pushing me into the graduation in a wheelchair, or like, will I be on a walker, or like, what's our plan? Because Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen are going to age better than us. So I'm a little nervous about it. So we'll see. I don't know. I love being an uncle. We're uncles. And I love that. I love other people's kids. I love having them for like a day, filling them with sugar and sending them home. All my favorite things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
3rd question.
Oh, yeah.
What is the biggest thing that you have learned in your Crohn's disease journey?
Ooh, that's good.
The thing that you want other, victims of Crohn's disease to hear.
It sounds really, really cliche, but it will get better. The thing that I think I tell people more often than not when they slide into my DMs with questions about I just had one today about aceton, a drain being put in, and it's horrific. It's painful. It's just as bad as you imagine it would be. I had a guy write me. He's having 19 drains in a couple of weeks, and wow. there's no positive to that, right? But what I told him was this will get better. Like there is going to come a point where this is going to be better, and so. Keep going, keep pushing. I tell people all the time, depression for me was a thing that was like on the peripheral until I went into my flare. And then now I really understand depression, especially in the middle of a pandemic where I'm locked in my house and can't leave. I've learned a lot about my mental health in the last year and a half, but that's why I tell people, keep going, keep pushing, reach out to someone that has it that you can talk to, because someone will understand, but you just keep pushing. Don't give up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, the novel Nana, for that.
Yeah, I liked that. That was fun. This is fun though to do this with somebody who does this too, because you're used to the picking up where I dropped the ball. Wild Triggers back in the 90s. I will, Richard, I'll write it down into several short stories and share them in critique group. I'll pull out my journals and just read you all the angst. I wrote poetry during that time, guys. And I was very inspired by Alanis. And there's just a lot that was happening at that time that I'm not as proud of today as I was then. Here we go. I like this one. Adrian, what were your greatest strengths and weaknesses in writing again?
My greatest strength is ironically the thing that I'm most self-conscious about, which is dialogue. I put a lot of effort into making my dialogue sound natural and to have it flow from the characters. I'm very pleased every time somebody compliments my dialogue, because that's, for the longest time, was the hardest thing for me to write, and now it's where I feel most comfortable.
Yeah, it's the most natural thing.
And what was the other part of the question?
Here, I moved it here. It's
strengths and weaknesses. So it's kind of a twofer, right? Because now my greatest strength is dialogue, but it used to be my greatest weakness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right.
Work on your greatest weakness so hard that it becomes your greatest strength. Boom!
Let's see. In your writerly life, who was or is your biggest supporter or cheerleader?
My sister. My sister is an incredible writer. She has written an incredible script for a film that I keep telling her she needs to finish and pitch to studios because it is a winner. I send her all of my chapters to read and edit and critique. I don't let anyone read my stuff until after I've gotten feedback from my sister first. She's in my corner, man. She is the best thing ever. I love my sister. She's the best.
All right. I love that answer. So then I need to be working on getting better at settings then, because I am terrible at settings. Fair enough. Listen,
just dive into it, man. Just focus on your settings and making them as flourishing and detailed as possible without going too detailed, because let me tell you something. One of my favorite writers is, of course, George R.R. Martin, but his feast scenes need to be scaled back a bit. Dude goes on and on about blood oranges and stuff. Bro, get back to heads getting chopped off. So know where the limit is. Know where it becomes too much. Your setting is very important, but your plot and your characters are more important. So write accordingly.
I mean, yes, I think that's some pretty solid advice. I love it. Okay. Oh no, plane crashed down. Isn't that great? Yeah. Because she said, fun fact. I love this. Fun fact. Her song "Ironic" is the reason I'm not getting on a plane. Okay, that's one of my favorite all-time albums. Same. I had a wild love for her. It was, I don't know.
Even though the song about things being ironic isn't really right, because those things are not ironic. Yeah, it's ironically unironic.
My husband messes up irony all the time. There's all the time where he's like, "It's ironic," and I'm like,
"That's not ironic."
That's not ironic. Waiting is yes. Oh, how big of a role or influence do people watching play on inspiration for your characters?
I want to say a huge role, but I don't necessarily assign a bunch of time to it or anything like that. It's not like a lot of writers will tell you to go to a coffee shop and sit there and just people watch for a day or whatever. And yeah, that's all well and good, but I don't feel like it's enough to just sit and watch people. It's when you interact with them that you find those little nuggets of really good writing stuff. And so again, me working in a hotel, having to check people in, check people out, that kind of thing, interacting with them. Sometimes we have folks that stay with us for weeks on end, and I get to know them very well. So yes, people watching, but more interaction with people, I find is more important, because I consider myself a collector of stories. When a person comes up to check in at my hotel and they tell me their name and it's a name I've never heard before, I'm sorry, everything stops. And I'm like, what is the background of that name? What does it mean? Where did your parents come up with it? I've never heard this name before. Tell me about it. I love collecting names. I love collecting people's stories behind their names, people's stories behind their backgrounds and where they're from, what they do. So people watching, yes, but people interacting more. Interact with people and you'll find story ideas everywhere.
Fair. Colin, we haven't had the chance since 2019 to people watch. Agreed. Feel
it
your
never
pain.
stopped for me because I you
were,
did my job through that whole time. Yeah. But
my husband
I get that.
Works with people. So he is out in the world, and somehow he got COVID and I did not. So go figure. We were really
sometimes, man.
Careful. Yeah. Okay. I love this question. Do you struggle with the isolation of being a writer, or do you enjoy it?
I enjoy it, but I'm an introvert. In general, I dislike people. If I can choose to not interact with people, I will. There's nothing better to me than being ready to go out for a night of, interacting with other people and getting that call where they can't make it. Oh, it's like crack to me. Like, oh, it's the best. I don't have to go out. Are you kidding me? This is the best news I've had in forever. So, yeah, I don't really struggle with the isolation of being a writer, other than finding the time. Because again, I'm a husband and a father, and my wife likes me for some reason and wants to have me around, and my kids get excited to see me. It makes no sense, but it's true. And so, other than that, I love the isolation of being a writer. I love that it's such a lonely, kind of career. It's just you and your brain and your imagination. It's beautiful.
You're getting some comments. As an introvert, I just love it when plans get canceled. My husband does too. Same. I'm an introvert. When I got out all of this, all I do is think about when I can go back home. My husband too. Same. Yes, Adrian. Everybody's just laying it out there for you. I am going to wrap things down. I am going to give you the opportunity to have the floor, close out, letting people know what's coming from you, what they should be looking for, all the things. I have included all of your links below, so everybody be sure and check those out. Within 24 hours, I will have chapters included as well as links to the videos that we discussed below. I don't know if I'll get fancy enough to do cards, but we'll just see how tomorrow goes. But I will have chapters and I will have links to the videos. So Adrian, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away, my friend.
Folks, thank you so much for being here to listen to me babble on and on. This has been great. I've had so much fun. Booksbyadrian.com. Sign up for the newsletter. There will be some very big things announced very, very soon. And you're going to want to be at the forefront of it, because there's also kind of a time thing that happens where, like, if you miss out, it's going to be different. So don't miss out and get in on it when it launches. So the new platform, all for new writers, independent authors, people who have trouble getting out of their own way, getting that first draft done. Come to me. I will help you, my babies. My Instagram, Books by Adrian with underscores, but the easiest way is to just go to either my website or my channel and click on the Instagram button, and there you are. I will be putting up polls to kind of help mold this new platform, and I want your feedback. So please go to my Instagram and click on follow. There's also a link tree on there where you can find all my stuff. Same thing with my booksbyadrian.com. You can find all my links on there. There is a podcast coming soon where all of the live stream Sunday episodes will be available as audio only podcasts. I know that a lot of people have been asking for that. That is coming. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, man, booksbyadrian.com and my Instagram. Go to it, get ready, sign up for the newsletter. Lots of big stuff coming. Lots of big stuff coming.
Love it. Love it. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming. This has been a blast. I want everyone to check out Books by Adrian. I'm telling you, the live stream Sundays are epic. I cannot wait to see what's going on after the rebranding. This has been fun. It will be, I'm going to expect you to come back, though, when it's time for MYTHIC to...
Anytime you want me, bro, I am right here for you.
Yes. And, I will say this now. We are including Adrian in Critique Group Live. So he is joining us So look for that. That's coming up in a couple weeks or something. So look for that. I will let everyone know. There will be emails. You will be annoyed by me. I love you all. Thank you for coming. I really hope you follow and lift each other up. I appreciate you. Stay healthy and well. And thanks everybody for coming. We will see you soon.